leaders will be finding your own voice and finding how you want to speak out on behalf of your identity. And for some of you, it's one strong, narrow, intense identity, and that can make things easy. For others of you, it's complicated because you wear different identities, maybe at different times of the day. Maybe you wear all of them all at the same time every day, and it can be hard. It can be complicated. You don't necessarily know how to carry that out, and you probably got parents and relatives and friends and everybody else with tons of opinions on what that should look like for you. So it's a matter of continuing to find your own voice as leaders, as Pakistani American leaders, or whatever other kinds of thing you're going to stand up for. And it can take years, and that's okay too. In a sense, there's no need to rush it. One of my mentors, who is a leadership expert, who's written many books on leadership, will talk about how finding your own voice is a process that takes decades. And then he looked at some of the people who really moved the world, people like Gandhi or Churchill. It didn't happen at the age of 26. It happened in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. That oftentimes they make a contribution then. Pakistan might need that. The place isn't going to change overnight. But my personal hope is just that over time, there's a little bit more sense of connection, dialogue, a little bit more sense of what Pakistanis have actually been wrestling with. And one other resource I want to mention to you, has anybody read Ghost Wars? Gotta read it. If you care about the subject, read Ghost Wars. It's 600 pages. I'd love to say it goes by fast, but it doesn't. But it is great. Steve Cole, managing editor at Washington Post, wrote the book. It was just a terrific look at all the different forces that went into what we've got going on right now. And what Cole does is delineate from, actually the first chapter of the book is about the burning of the U.S. Embassy, and that I showed you up there, and mentioning a little bit the attack on my school when I was there. It's sort of using that as a launching point for what happened during the Afghan invasion by the Soviets, what came afterward, how someone like Bin Laden arrived on the scene, and how Americans miscalculated that maybe he's not such a bad thing, and how all these different things happened, and everybody making a mess of it, from the Americans to the Saudis to the Pakistanis to the Afghanis, on and on. No heroes in this book. And so there's this need for again, I go back to that word maturity, which is you can see the world in idealistic black and white, us versus them, good versus evil terms, or you can see it in terms of a certain maturity that comes from understanding we have flaws, the other sides have flaws too. And the last thing I'll say before we open up for questions is that sense in which, bear in mind, when you look at countries, I feel like, as I write about public diplomacy, as part of the center of public diplomacy, oftentimes people somehow evaluate nations and so forth in terms of events and statements and so forth, and they don't see them in terms of psychology. And I feel like I love psychology personally. Coming from a sort of old world background, I know that you can freak out some people from an old world background talking about therapy and all that, because that's limited to crazy people, right? But I could do it all day. And I love it in the same sense that if you look at the kinds of things going on, you see Pakistan sometimes acting like a jilted lover. You see America acting like an insecure bully. You can see other various kinds of things. But when you start to see the psychological dynamics, no one person is very simple. We've all got conflicted things inside us. Countries are even more complicated. What is America now compared to a year ago under Bush? Is it the same person? In a sense, it is. It is a collective, it is a large, 300 million person-sized ultra person. Same with Pakistan, 170 million people, conflicted in many ways, but you see these larger mentalities in these countries, and you want to understand their mentalities, their feelings of hurt, their feelings of resentment, all those kinds of things. And when you do that, you have a better chance of achieving a greater sense of understanding and ability to perhaps create some cooperation. A little bit like marital therapy, I suppose. But I want to open it up for questions.